Hey everybody, Kenneth Yeung here with at theletter2.com. I'm here with interviewing Ernie Mosteller, Interactive Creative Director of Brunner. And actually, it's been a really interesting time. I really wanted to interview you for quite a while now for my segment, People Marketers Need to Know, simply because I think that you bring a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge in terms of working in an agency and helping your clients kind of navigate the interactive realm. And just to give, I guess, the viewers a little bit of information about you, you're currently the Interactive Creative Director at Brunner. You've been here since 2006, or in that capacity since 2006. You're a proud graduate of the University of Georgia.
Yes, very proud.
And previous roles that you've had and have just been phenomenal have been, you've been Associate Creative Director, a Director working in TV and video, an Executive Creative Director working in print, stills, and now you're in the interactive arena. And something people might not know is that you're also an author. One of the book that you wrote is Use a Stick, and I hope to delve into that a little bit more.
Sure.
But I guess the first question that I have for you is, how did you choose, or how did you get into the interactive arena?
I'm not sure that you choose interactive. I think sometimes interactive chooses you. And I think that might be a little bit of what happened to me. You know, I started on the traditional agency side just like anybody else, a copywriter, and worked up to creative director, and then left and directed television commercials for a long time. And I think that the changes in the industry that I saw coming with the emergence of the web, and knew that there was going to be a better way and better and faster ways emerging to deliver video on the web, sort of led me. I was always kind of a geek anyway, so I was always online, and I always kept up with everything and knew what was coming, and said, okay, gee, here's a great new delivery mechanism, and got into it sort of that way, as a delivery mechanism mostly for video, and that was early on. And the deeper I got into it, the more I liked the social interaction, the psychological strategy. It's the same things that I enjoy doing as a creative director. The study of sociology, how people react, how people interact, how people absorb information. But it's heightened, and the niches are narrowed, and so it makes it intellectually really stimulating.
Okay.
And that pushed me that way.
And out of all the different types of media, I mean, you just said that you kind of selected to be in the interactive arena, and kind of from when you were very young to now, and kind of working in the social arena. Out of all the different types of professions that you've had, well, I guess different types of media that you've worked with, which do you prefer or do you like the best?
Tough question. I think, well, I write a lot about how there's a commonality across all forms of communication, and how it all boils down to basic human interaction. So from there are things that I like better than others. I'm not sure that I can pinpoint one specific medium that I like the best. I certainly like things that incorporate motion. I like video. I like film. At the same time, I like imagery from stills. But more than any of that, I like sort of creating the human interaction that is motivated by those things.
Okay.
Right now, that's new media. That's electronic new media.
Okay. And having worked with videos, I mean, what, in terms of that human interaction or that new media, what role do you see videos playing in terms of being interactive? I mean, what do you see your clients wanting to do with video?
All sorts of things. I mean, everything from what do clients want to do, or what should they be doing?
Well, let's start off with the first part. What do clients want to do?
I think everybody's attracted to video. I think you can write something and expect somebody to read it. You can take a picture, and there's the old adage, it's worth 1,000 words, and that brings another emotional content to your message. And video is pictures and words put together, and it's live, and there are all sorts of human things that come through in video. You get a sense of somebody's personality. You start to understand nuance because you can see them talking with their hands, and
Yep.
you can see those inflections. So people are attracted to video. We know that. Historically, they're attracted to television. What do clients want to do with video? They want to do anything they can. Too many of them want to create what is essentially a television commercial and put it on YouTube, and they think they're getting exposure and brand exposure that way. It's not really a great use. Not that YouTube is a bad vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube can be a wonderful vehicle if the stuff is created properly for it. I think that video can be interactive without clicking through and finishing your own story, but it can do that too. With the new ways that video is delivered, where you can put hotspots and click right in the picture in the video, it just allows you to create engaging stories that entertain people at some point. I think there's still a market for, I want to click it and sit back and watch it and laugh, and it means something to me, or it somehow sends me a message. I think video, there are a lot of possibilities for it,
Okay.
and they're growing.
And how can agencies better understand being interactive? I mean, do you get that sense that some agencies, obviously there are some that are better than others? I mean, I don't happen to know any off the top of my head, and I don't want to name any names either way, but...
I mean, isn't that the common discussion? Why don't they get it? Some get it, some don't. I think that's, yeah.
But how can they get it? I mean, what are some? I mean, people seem to think it's just all creating web pages, sending out emails, doing it piecemeal, but the main essence is still in print. I mean, how can you?
It was funny. I had I won't mention a name, but I had a fairly high level creative who wants to work for us contact me, and he had no interactive work, and I said, have you? Oh yeah, I've done some of that, and I don't really, haven't wrapped my head around it, but it seems like it's just print that moves, or maybe it's like a shorter version of TV. And in my head, I was like, dude, that is like the worst thing that you could have said to me.
Yeah.
It's like, I will never hire you, because he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand the essence of the medium. I think that every traditional agency in the world is crossing over. They have to. Everybody's got to cross over that interactive bridge. How they cross over it will be different for every one of them, and how much they understand the true promise of the medium. And I call it a medium because but it's not. It's a bunch of different media that are held together only by the fact that they're accessible through a computer.
Yeah.
But to realize the possibilities and to realize the differences, I think you have to live in the medium. And part of my job here is, Brunner is a big 360-degree all-encompassing agency with traditional units and digital units. And I was having a discussion with one of the traditional creative directors, and I said, here's the good news and the bad news. The bad news first. If you want to know all about digital and you want to know all about interactive, then you have to live the life that I live. I get up in the morning and I'm online, and I'm online all day long. And when I go home at night, and I shut my computer down and I put it in my bag, and I go home and I open it back up and I'm online again. And I haven't touched newsprint in 5 years, and I barely watch television because I can get the dogs online. It's like that's my source of information, communication. It's my source of pretty much all incoming and most outgoing communications that I do, and that's how I live my life. And if you do that, you'll understand, and that's a hard thing to do. That's the bad news. The good news is if you start doing that today and you continue to live your life that way, in 18 months you'll know as much about it as I do, because it changes that fast. And it's a continual learning process. The new things that are out there, there's something new tomorrow. So and I think that's a difficult leap for a lot of agencies, and why they haven't made the. I mean, look, advertising was really well defined for 50 years. It was what, 5 media, radio, TV, print, outdoor, and direct.
Mm-hmm.
And that was advertising for 50 years. Now there are a lot of other things that are not as well defined, and they're all accessible via a mouse. You know?
So, one of my friends actually posed this question to me a while back. They wanted to kind of jump into an interactive agency, or rather a communications company that kind of did basically everything. It did print, TV, PR, interactive, and market research. Their background obviously is in marketing, similar as mine and like yours, but they weren't very skilled in terms of the interactive. But they wanted to do more account management, project management, those type of things. Is it necessary to have an interactive background to succeed in those positions? Or simply, is it just learning how to read the client, understand what they want, and relate and manage a project at any given time?
Yes. I don't have an interactive background. When I was directing film, and I was directing, network commercials, and I always loved this when I would get a stage mom that would come up to me, I'd have their kid on shooting a Hasbro commercial or whatever. What film school did you go to? Well, I have a degree in agriculture from the University of Georgia. So I didn't know it's agricultural communications. I'll admit that, but essentially it's like I was trained to write for farm publications.
Yeah.
So I don't have a background in film, and I don't have a background in interactive. I don't think that you have to go to school for it.
Okay.
I mean, if you're writing, and maybe not even if you're writing code, because I think a lot of the best coders, start out as computer science majors and then figure out I can make more money writing code, and I'd rather do that than go to class. So I'm not sure that we're at a point, if we ever will be, where you have to have this formal credentials to work in interactive. Now, having said that, I think you need a basic understanding to be a project manager or to be an account executive. I think you need a basic understanding of what's out there, what's available for your clients, and once you get a project in the works, what are the elements that are needed to complete that project? Certainly for project management, you need that.
And I guess moving past web pages, I mean, everybody, in its heyday, everybody wanted one. They could either have their kids do their their websites.
My
and everything
nephew.
Exactly. My
My
neighbor's brother's kids' sons from
Yeah.
the working out of the garage can build this website and everything. But moving past that, what do you see some of your clients wanting in terms of the interactive? What other cool things is Brunner doing specifically, or that you're seeing being done in the interactive realm?
We've done some cool things that don't have anything to do with web pages.
Okay.
I think that we build a lot of stuff here. We can build apps, and we can so we've done that.
Okay.
We've done some interesting live. We did an interesting live presentation for DeVry University, where they go into high school classes,
Yep.
and the whole thing's interactive. The kids have PDAs, and they interact with the PDA, and that interacts with the presentation that's being projected, and the two of them talk to each other live, and collectively the class does affects the way the presentation goes, and it's a data capture mechanism as well. That's an interesting piece that doesn't it has a web component later on, but it wasn't conceived of as a web element. We've done viral video. We've done mobile campaigns where we experiment with a lot of things. We're starting to play with QR codes a little bit. I think that there's really no limit to what you can do. And I think that, going back to websites, I think there are opportunities within websites as well. Like you said, 5 years ago, everybody had a web. I'm a company. I'm a brand. I gotta have a website.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Don't really know why I gotta have one.
Just gotta have.
Gotta have one.
Yep.
Don't know what it does. And so what the website of 5 years ago was it was a kitchen sink. It was anything. Well, that should go there. Let's put that on the site. And now we're starting to see the next wave of, and it's interesting, we're having these conversations with what I would consider very, very, very traditional clients who have a site, and they're going, what's this site supposed to do? And now the site is being viewed as, okay, it's got a specific marketing job. It's a part of the mix, and it doesn't matter what it's supposed to. I mean, is it there to capture leads? Is it there to deliver coupons? Is it there as an e-commerce piece? It's got a job now.
Yep.
Not just a microsite. I'm talking about the main site for a brand now has a job. Find a dealer, whatever it is, depending upon what the brand is. So there's opportunity, I think, for agencies who are building the next generation of those sites. But there's further opportunity beyond that because of Web 2.0 and because of things like this. You can deliver web on sites, right?
Yep.
Every site that's being built now has got all these components for, here's a video, here's your video gallery, and now here's your RSS feed that you're going to spit out, and here's all the blog posts that you need to do, and your website comes complete with all of those things. But remember, Mr. Client, you've got to refresh those.
Yeah.
Well, but they don't have the capacity to do that. So I think there's opportunity for agencies or some entity in content creation. Websites are being built now that are based completely on content, and somebody's got to make that.
Okay. Do agencies get social media?
No. Yes. People inside agencies get social media.
But do the higher ups, whether it's the head of the agency, or creative directors like yourself, or client service folks, I mean, do they get it so that they can go out and sell it?
By and large, no. Social media, you've seen it with the demographics of Facebook are getting older. The demographics of LinkedIn are far older than those of Facebook. The people who own and run agencies, by and large, are not of the generation that they would embrace social media in the way that it has been embraced by the millennials. However, the millennials are getting older, and the millennials are rapidly coming into a position of responsibility, and they're affecting the way older generations look at things. Now, I'm clearly not a millennial. I'm not even I'm not even really an Xer. They just discovered a term for my generation. They call it the Jones generation, because I don't identify with boomers and I don't really identify with Xers, and I'm sort of in between. I can talk to you about the Sex Pistols all day long, But it's that, and I'm old enough to have lived in old media and understand the delivery mechanisms there. But I also recognize that the one constant in today's environment is rapid change.
Yeah. And
so you have to keep up with that. And I think that there is agency leadership out there that understands that, just not a whole lot. It's not the norm.
Yeah. Okay. But how can, there's a lot of changes going on in terms of the tech industry or technology, whether it's mobile marketing, email marketing, SEO, search engine marketing, or simply going down to the basics websites. The website technology used to develop it. How can agencies help their clients better understand these rapid changes? Because
it depends on the client. That's some clients. What's interesting is because of the complete and total democracy of the web.
Yep.
All information is free now. Agencies used to be the man behind the curtain, and you don't have to worry about that, Mr. Client. We know how to make it. We have the magic wand, and we can go make the TV commercial that's magic, because you don't know how to do it. Clients, by and large, know as much as agencies do about what's available and what's out there, and a lot of times clients will say, look, we like this. We really want something innovative, bring us something innovative. So I think the smart clients are being more demanding.
But then keeping in line with that train of thought, what happens if you have, you just illustrated, smart clients. What happens if you get a
if you
client,
have a not so smart one?
Just in general, you have a client who comes to you, and of course, the web is a wide open field. And anybody can look it online. Their kids on Facebook or something, doing the advanced wall app on Facebook, or I don't know, with some other weird app that somebody made millions off of, and they come up to you out of the blue in a client meeting and say, we want a Facebook app. We have no idea what the value is, but we think it's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, how do
we
you
get
guys
that. We get that all the time. Make us a blog. We want a blog. So, well, do you need a blog? I think the key to it, and yes, it takes an understanding of the medium.
Mm-hmm.
It takes an understanding of the medium to understand that it's not the medium that matters. It's about who your customers are and what your customers want. And I think that's the big leap that agencies have to be able to make. Once again, let's get back to traditional advertising. It's been easy for them to not really have to make that leap. It's been easy for them to say, oh, we put a cool picture up in a pithy headline, and that's our brand face to the world.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's not that people suddenly decided to turn off advertising. They've always been turning off advertising. It's just really visible now when they do. And it's immediate. You get immediate numbers back saying, nobody clicked on your ad, man.
Yeah.
So it's all about the user. It's all about what they want and what they want to hear from the brand. And now it's not about what they want and what they want to hear just in terms of tone and visual aesthetic. It's about how they want to hear it. So you've got to go to the user, you've got to go to the consumer and find out where are the people who are likely to interact with this brand, where do they want to interact with it?
Okay.
And you build what's appropriate for that.
Okay. I guess the age-old question or dilemma that some agencies probably run into, and I guess I've worked in an agency before coming to DC, and working in more of a client relation role, so I've kind of seen this myself. But how do you deal with clients, or how do you work with clients who say, okay, the web is a wide open field, I can do anything, and it should be pretty cost effective to do, because simply, like we alluded to earlier, my nephew can build a web page from, on the computer, and it can look something like that. But what if they want to do a web page, email marketing, and a mobile marketing campaign, but all they want to pay for is just the website? I mean, how? Obviously, you encounter that as well.
Sure.
I mean, how do agencies, not specifically Brunner, but agencies in general, in your opinion, how would they handle that?
It's all about the story you tell. Agencies have to market themselves to their clients as well, and I think that the rap on the web is it's cheap.
Yeah.
And for a major brand, when you compare a web initiative versus running an ad on the Super Bowl, yeah, it's cheap, but that doesn't mean that it's pocket change cheap.
Yeah.
Right now, we're still in a transition where things are getting built. And whenever that happens, there's experimentation. And so there's been an awful lot of experimentation, and it has shifted the aesthetic of what's acceptable from a production standpoint. YouTube has shifted the public aesthetic of what's acceptable. It's your kid with a camcorder shooting his brother running into the garage wall is now, that's okay. And it's okay for a brand to wrap themselves around that.
Yep.
It won't be okay forever, because tastes shift, and as production values start to come up, and higher production values are capable of being compressed and sent out via YouTube, and they are now. I mean, it's like I watched half the Olympics online, and the production values were spectacular. So as those production values start to become the norm and they go up, now you have to start paying a premium to get good lighting and to get people who have talent behind the lens and to get people. And beyond that, what an agency can bring to a client that his nephew can't bring is an understanding of the brand and an understanding of of the consumer that they're targeting. You're not just making stuff and throwing it up on the wall and hoping it sticks. I think there's going to be a lot of that for a while, but ultimately I think it's about the thinking and the creative talent that an agency brings to the party.
Okay. Just how crucial is the internet to the advertising world? I mean,
it's critical now. I mean, it's everything now.
Do you think that traditional advertising is fading away, kind of like how radio is, and everything's moving towards a more digital spectrum?
I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon.
Okay.
And I'm not going to argue the bandwagon either, because I believe photography didn't make illustration go away. Color photography didn't make black and white photography go away. Now, having said that, the digital medium is the only medium that has the capacity to take all the other media and swallow them whole. Even outdoor. I mean, billboards can be digital and can be linked to via satellite now. So, I mean, it's the only medium that really can drive all of the others. Will it someday completely and totally replace everything else? Yeah, maybe. But won't they still be, I mean, just because it's coming through the web, isn't it still radio? Aren't you still supposed to have your eyes on the road? You know, I mean, it's not like, at some point, it's just about an interaction, and this is an opportunity to only play audio to somebody because they're driving a car. Or this is an opportunity to passively entertain somebody because they're really not interested in writing tonight. They just want to pop open a beer and click back and see what's there. So I think that all the media matter. But certainly from a spending standpoint, and you know, the internet as it stands right now has some interesting advantages that weren't there, 10 years ago.
Okay. And as I alluded to earlier, I mean, you are an author. I mean, you wrote a book that you published online called Use a Stick.
Yeah.
What is that book about?
I read it now and I think it's a little naive, but I wrote it in 2005, and I wrote it from the perspective of I had a great catbird seat for 15 years. I was a director who had been a creative director, and I was working with major agencies on some pretty major spots. And because you're the director, you're not the client, the agency would let you in on all the dirt on how the spot got to where it is.
Mm-hmm.
They had to, so you could make a good spot for them. And because you're a director and you're not the agency, the client would let you in on all the dirt on how the. So I had this catbird seat, and because I had an understanding of strategy, having been a creative director, a lot of directors, they come up through photography or they come up through they're a cameraman, they're a gaffer. Not all of them have agency experience. So I was still interested in the strategy. And I was able to sort of sit back and go, well, this is classic, client agency. You're not talking to each other. You're not fulfilling his needs. He's not telling you enough. Here are all the classic problems. And here's this thing called the web coming.
Yep.
And all of these problems that you've had for 100 years, they're just going to get bigger. But they all boil down to really simple solutions. Your client's not happy with your agency. Back in 2005, there was some study done by the 4As, I think, that said, 65% of all clients are not happy with their agencies, and everybody's worried, why aren't they happy? And it's like, that's really the answer. Find out what's making them mad and fix it. There are a lot of simple solutions that aren't necessarily easy, but they certainly are simple. And when I read it now, like I said, I think it's a little naive, but it conforms to my worldview that things aren't always as complicated as they seem.
Okay.
And I think that we in advertising tend to overcomplicate everything we get our hands on.
Okay. And who are some of your role models, or who do you consider your mentor?
I had this discussion the other day. I don't know that I had a mentor. Um, I had people who helped me a lot making the transition from the agency side to the directing side. Some of the hottest directors of the late 80s I happened to be friends with, and they had come from the agency side. So they helped me out a lot there. Honestly, it goes back to my dad he's a farmer, and he's an amazing agricultural engineer. The guy can make anything. He can go to a farm equipment show, and instead of paying $100,000 for a sprayer, he'll walk around it 3 or 4 times and go back and make it. And it'll look like it came out of the factory. So I think his ability to see and envision and build things was really important. And I had an art teacher. Despite being an ag major, I spent a lot of time in the art school my senior year. And I had an illustration teacher who drove me insane, because he would never, he'd just stand and stare at what you were drawing, and then he would just say something like, have a look at that line right there. And then he'd walk away. And you'd be like, what? What's wrong? What? You know, and you'd stare at it and you'd have to figure out for yourself what was wrong. And he was great at that. And he made me look at the world and really study the world and figure out what I was looking at. And I think he made me a student of a lot of things.
Okay. What can agencies do to develop, I guess, an effective creative strategy?
I don't know that there's a single answer to that question, but probably the most important thing is to learn everything that you can learn about the customer and what the customer wants. I think that's far and away the most important thing.
Okay. And you're and I've read on your blog, and we've had discussions before, and one of the things that I've that I know about you is that you're you're a fan of Seth Godin, and one of the things is that I take away from him is the book The Purple Cow, and I know that's one of the things that I always try and aspire to, and kind of create my own purple cow. But how do creative directors, or how do agencies go about and to create that? I guess specifically from your experience here at Brunner.
I think The Purple Cow is a good example. I like Seth's writing. I think Seth is marketing 101 for the common man.
Yep.
Which is it's a great DIY kind of take on the world, and he takes sophisticated ideas and boils them down into simple equations. The Purple Cow is about being different in some way. I think that agencies achieve difference for their clients far more often than they achieve difference between agencies. Agencies have a hard time differentiating themselves one from another. Every agency thinks they have something proprietary and some perfect story that they tell their clients. But I can tell you, as a director, when I worked with a lot of different agencies, they all tell the same story to their clients. They all do. And it's just different words, but it's all exactly the same thing. So agencies have a hard time differentiating between each other. But I think that it's job one of an agency to get we're here to get our client noticed, to make them famous, to make their brand stand out. And so I think that that's the essence of quality creative, is to do something that stands out. I think it's something that that all agencies know how to do, either well or not so well. But I think that's our job.
Okay. How do you get inspired?
Wow. Play with my kids. Yeah, I'm pretty inspired by my family. I'm inspired by the ocean. Beyond that, depends on the project I'm working on. I will delve deeply into the subject matter, and I'm looking for a truth. that can be communicated, or that I can exploit and pour gas on. You know, I will delve really deeply into the subject matter.
Where do you see some trends go? What are some trends that you're seeing? I mean, you work basically online in the interactive marketing realm, day in and day out. What are some trends that you're seeing? I mean, not like statistical.
This afternoon, or
Well, I mean, I guess over the course of what people are asking for, I mean, do you see a lot more people kind of exploring more of the mobile, delving more, and
Yeah,
of course it's different based off of the different client needs and everything, but
I think mobile is the great unknown. I mean, I think there are questions about, certainly there's a market, certainly there's a billion people text messaging each other on their
Yep.
phones. And certainly there are a bajillion phones out there with capabilities beyond what we're delivering for them. The iPhone, maybe it's a game changer, maybe it's not. I think that I don't have an iPhone. I have an iPod Touch, which is everything but the phone.
Yeah.
I use a quarter of its capabilities. And I think, for whatever reason, that's true of a lot of mobile devices, that even the power users don't use all the capabilities. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's a cultural thing. Because if you look at Japan, I mean, mobile phones are ubiquitous, and amazing apps are used on mobile phones, and people, are essentially carrying their life around in something this big,
Yeah.
the way we carry our life around in our laptop. And the people that I've talked with in mobile say, well, it's the carriers don't deliver consistently, and it's not like the way the carriers are set up in Europe or the way they're set up in Japan. I don't know enough about it to know exactly what the roadblock is, but I know that there's immense opportunity if it becomes cultural the way it has in Japan and the way it has in Europe. So that's an opportunity. I don't know that it's a trend, but it's definitely an opportunity.
And you're an avid blogger. Where have you blogged? I mean, do you have your own personal blog? But you also blog on, I guess, a more professional level, on your agency's website, but also on another website as well.
Adotis.com.
Adotis.
Yeah.
What types of topics or what do you blog about on these sites? I guess specifically, not your personal one, but your other ones.
Oh, but I mean, honestly, they're all similar. They're all my perspective. They all tend to be my perspective on interactive marketing. My personal one tends to be aimed at agencies, agency creatives, specifically people making a transition from traditional to digital, where there's some understanding of digital.
Mm-hmm.
My blogs on, and I don't blog as much as I should on the Bruner Digital blog, but it's, a lot of authors, so I don't have to I don't have to pony up quite as often as I do for my own or for Adotis.
Yeah.
But it's that tends to be things that we're hearing from clients, or things that, kind of subtly I want clients to maybe take a look at. It's not a sales job so much as it is an explanation for why I was in that meeting last week trying to explain this to you.
Yeah.
And it's useful things that I think our clients can use. And Adotis is very, it's a real, it's the magazine, the online magazine of interactive advertising, and I find that it is extraordinarily tech and delivery mechanism heavy. There's a lot of discussion of, here's the media buy, here's how to deal with SEO, and here's how to deal, and there's not a good sort of creative voice there. So I try to be the creative voice that pops up once a month there.
Okay. And since you blog on so many different websites, I mean, you have a keen understanding of, in terms of best practices and everything like that. I was talking with Peter Corbett last Thursday, and the subject was kind of brought up in terms of how do you be authentic in terms of what's in terms of blogging or your online presence and everything like that. And what are your thoughts, or what are your advice in terms of somebody or a client who says, okay, we want to set up a blog, and so you guys set up a blog for them because they come up with some interesting idea of why they want to blog. So they have the concept like, oh, we want to blog because we want to communicate. But at the same time, then they post comments totally erroneous from people they make up. I mean, is that a good way to go, or how can they truly be authentic and truly use the blog to their advantage?
See if I can get myself in trouble here. Just because it's a blog doesn't mean it's authentic.
Okay.
Okay? You can blog for any reason whatsoever. There are a lot of reasons to blog. Sometimes it's a way, when blogs were first developed, it was one of the first really visible two-way conversations, or multi-person conversations. They've been around for a long time. I mean, they've been around in the form of forums and before that, message boards.
Yep.
You know, in the early days of the internet. But now it's really visible, and it's got some linking characteristics to it.
But more for a business, for business's purposes. I mean, should it not be authentic?
I'm getting there. Definitely. So you can blog to push information.
Mm-hmm.
You can blog to have a two-way conversation. You can blog with no comments whatsoever, and all you're then doing is pushing out information, and all it is long-form ad copy at that point, essentially. I believe that there has been a cultural shift in favor of transparency, and that's not just on blogs, and it's not just online, that's also in advertising and in the way corporations conduct themselves. I believe that transparency is something that's important to marketing just in general. So yeah, it's a bad idea to fake comments to a blog, regardless of the fact that it's kind of a dirty thing to do, but it's not transparent, and you get called on it. And so even if it weren't a dirty thing to do, getting caught at it's a bad thing, and it hurts you. So I guess rule one as a marketer is never do anything that's going to hurt your brand. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to play in the other kids' playground, but you want to play by your own rules. You can't do that. When you go into the other kids' playground, you got to play by their rules. And the rules of blogging say if there are comments up there, you leave them up, or you address the negative ones, or and if you don't want negative stuff, don't allow comments.
And I guess keeping in line with the controlling of the comments, a couple of things that I've heard, whether it's on the street and talking to other marketing professionals, or whether reading it online, is that some clients feel that they want to control what's being said about their brand.
Sure.
And I mean, that's a very, very valid reason for being online, but can you control the conversation entirely?
No, you can't control. Not even entirely. You can't control it at all. Period.
So what can marketers do? I mean, take for example, if I'm a client of yours, and I come up to you and say, oh, this commenter on my blog or on TripAdvisor or any of these forums, spouted ill will against our product. I want to sue this website. I want them to delete it. I want to post my own blog and everything like that. How can they, instead of just going off the bat and doing the wrong thing, what constructive ways can a client go to combat that?
There are a lot of ways to combat negative feedback. Seth writes about this a lot too. It's like one way is just to address it openly. We're sorry, we made a mistake. How can we fix it?
Okay.
Not every company can take that approach, but fighting negative feedback. If you've got negative feedback in the interactive world, you're on a blog or wherever, fighting it in a way that's going to be also perceived as a negative within that world is only going to hurt you more. So I think that, and like I said, there, and we, even as much as I talk, we don't have enough time here to go over all the different ways that you can combat that. But I'll just say that force is not the way to combat that.
Yeah.
You win more friends with honey than you do with, I don't know, what is that? My grandma used to say that. You catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar.
Yeah.
And I think that's really true online. But what I think clients don't realize, clients have only, they're laboring under the misconception that they've controlled the message ever. They've never controlled the message. It's never been, client A puts out an ad, and Bob sees the ad and he tells Jim, that's a crappy company, I don't like them. The client hasn't controlled that conversation. They never have. The difference is that now Bob and Jim have access to publishing material, and they can say that to the world. And that's what social media and the web has done, is it's facilitated those conversations. It hasn't given people the right to talk bad about you. What it's done is given them a megaphone. And so the way, you can't take their megaphone away. You have to change why they're talking bad about you.
So is a brand, like, I guess a brand message, is that more of a misnomer in terms of, because everybody, if a client wants to rebrand their company, organization, product, whatever it is, and they put together, redesign their entire site and everything like that, their message has already been skewed from day one based off of what other people have been saying, online, on the forums, on different blogs. I mean, take for example, if Procter and Gamble, I mean, they have Crest, or Tide, or any of the plethora of products. If there's one bad, people are already going to have said their piece or skewed what the company wants their brand to be. Is that an accurate assessment?
I think the proof is in the pudding. I think that you can change perceptions of a brand. That's what people hire advertising agencies to do, and I think you can do it. But I ultimately don't think you can, and we can take online out of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is in general. I don't think you can change the perception of a brand that's a crappy brand. If people think it's crap, and just by changing the logo doesn't make it not crap. So, but let's say you've got, and I don't want to pick on Crest, even though, well, I will pick on Crest. They're a competitor. So it's like, let's say Crest has got a toothpaste that's perceived as it's bad, or it doesn't whiten as well as it should, but they come up with a new one that will, and it actually will. They've got a hurdle to get over because the market doesn't believe that this is going to work. So they just have to take that hurdle into consideration, and they've got to doubly prove that in fact it does. And by proving that it does, and by making a product that actually does, they start to change the perception away from that old image.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, it boils down to the product or the service that you're advertising, and that's, was it Ogilvy who said nothing kills a bad product faster than good advertising, because it gets people to try the product. At the end of the day, it's the product.
Okay. And I mean, as you know, right now, I mean, we're recording this on a webcam, but I guess in the past few years, what's kind of come up in terms of social media has been, vlogging or live streaming events, going on Seismic, posting kind of like a video microblog, Twitter, others. I mean, there's a whole different types of, a lot of different applications out there. How do you see social media coming into play, I mean, in the next few years? And I guess on top of that, the last question I probably have I have for you is, where do you see the interactive marketing trend going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Wow. Where do I see it going? Where do I see it coming into play? There's another blogger that I follow a lot, and it's Yeung. And I mean, since his early days, and he and I've had a bit of an email relationship off and on. It's not about blogs. It's not about vlogging. It's not about the tools,
Okay.
the specific tools or the specific platforms. It's about the fact that the ability to publish, produce content virtually for free and put it in front of a worldwide audience is now open to almost everyone, or almost everyone in the second and third world, or second and first world.
Yeah.
Developing countries don't have the kind of access that they need yet, and there are some wonderful organizations that are helping that happen. Eventually, the whole world is wired, and everyone has the ability to produce content now. That's what those platforms represent, is the complete democratization of content creation. So the future for digital advertising agencies, or any advertising agency, I think, is to be able to bring something to the party. Now we're back to my nephew made it for me.
Yeah.
Bring something to the party that's better and more valuable than my nephew made it for me. And whether that's better thinking or whether that's hiring better creative talent, those are all the things that a specialist can do for you. Because yes, everyone has the ability to blog. Not everyone has the ability to blog well, and not everyone who even has the ability to blog well has the time to do it, because they're running their cheese shop. And yeah, I can write a blog about my cheese shop and maybe get a lot more business for my cheese shop, but I'm running my cheese shop. I'm selling cheese here, and I don't have the resources or the time in the day to do that marketing properly. Now, does the cheese shop guy, does he do it on his own? Probably. But if he's a cheese factory, he probably is better to hire someone who is an expert in those kinds of communications. That's the good news, is that we've got experts, and we have talent. The bad news is we have a heck of a lot more competition than we ever had before, because yes, we are competing with the nephew, and he's got the same video camera we do.
So I mean, and I guess that's kind of where you see more of like accessibility and kind of creating something new and different. Kind of like, is that kind of where the trend would move in the next 5 or so years, 5-10 years?
I think so. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to content, and once again, it's just it's a bigger thing. For my dad had a movie camera when I was little. And there's lots and lots and lots of movie footage of me running out at Christmas morning. He never won an Oscar for that footage, right? Because my dad wasn't a good enough. He could expose perfectly well and he could edit, but he didn't understand how to put together a storyline, and his subject matter was not so great, right? So he didn't become a famous filmmaker, and he didn't attract the audiences or move people to want to buy a brand. But he was a filmmaker. And I think, yeah, what an agency brings to the party is the higher level talent, hopefully, and an understanding of what the market, of what will play to the market, that probably not every it doesn't mean that DIY can't do that, just they can't do it as consistently or on as large a scale, I think, as someone who that's their job.
Okay, cool. Well, that's all the questions I have for you, Ernie. Thanks very much for joining me. Really appreciate it. And I guess, are there any final thoughts you might have or anything?
I think I've already,
all right.
I think I've given you all I got today. It is the end of the day, so
very true, very true. Well, thanks very much. Really appreciate it. And you can catch Ernie online on Twitter at Ernie Mosteller, or you can visit his website at
ErnieMosteller.com.
ErnieMosteller.com. Oh, you bought the domain? No?
Yeah, Ernie Mosteller, that's my blog, ErnieMosteller.com.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much, and I'll move on to the next guy.
Cool.
Right, thanks.
Thanks.